Imagine sitting across from me with a warm cup of coffee, and I tell you a story about a man who had a radical, almost unbelievable idea. His name was Timothy May, and back in the late 1980s, he looked at the emerging technology of cryptography, the art of writing and solving codes, and saw something far bigger than just keeping emails private. He saw a key, a tool that could, in his view, unravel government control forever. His core idea was surprisingly simple. He believed that if people could communicate and exchange value with absolute privacy, completely hidden from any outside observation, the very need for a central authority would start to evaporate. Why would you need a powerful middleman to enforce rules and guarantee your transactions if you and I could do it directly, securely, and anonymously on a global scale? It was a vision of a world run not by politicians, but by protocols, not by laws, but by code. As he himself put it, just as the technology of printing altered and reduced the power of medieval guilds and the social power structure, so too will cryptologic methods fundamentally alter the nature of corporations and of government interference in economic transactions. Now, when you first hear that, what happens inside you? There's often a quick, instinctive reaction. Maybe it's a surge of excitement at the thought of ultimate freedom. Or perhaps it's a knee-jerk feeling of fear, a nervousness about what a world without any rules might look like. That immediate, gut-level response is our first layer of thinking. It's fast, it's automatic, and it's designed to give us a quick answer so we can navigate the world without getting overwhelmed. You probably recognize that stubborn feeling of being right, that initial certainty that your first impression is the correct one. It's a natural human tendency, and it serves a purpose. But it's not our only way of understanding things. Beneath that surface reaction lies a deeper awareness, a capacity to pause and reflect. This is where the real tension begins. Our instinct wants to either fully embrace or fully reject an idea like May's immediately. It wants to put it in a neat box labeled good or bad. But our deeper awareness invites us to sit with the discomfort, to explore the nuances and the profound questions it raises. This friction isn't a flaw, it's the very engine of genuine understanding. Think about your own life for a moment. Remember when you realized a childhood belief wasn't quite true? Maybe it was about a holiday figure, or a simple idea about how the world works. That moment of realization likely wasn't just about swapping one fact for another. It was a subtle, sometimes uncomfortable, expansion of your understanding. You had to loosen your grip on a familiar story to make room for a more complex reality. Many of us cling to familiar ideas because they give us a sense of stability and certainty in a complicated world. Letting go of them, even a little bit, can feel unsettling. This is where Timothy May's ideas, even if we don't fully agree with them, become a powerful mirror. They reflect back to us how we all, to some degree, fool ourselves. We often mistake our initial reactions for deep wisdom. We confuse the familiar with the true. May's entire premise was about using technology to break away from the familiar structures of power that we've come to accept as inevitable. In a way, he was asking people to do exactly what that childhood moment required, to question a very big, widely accepted story about how society must be organized. His crypto-anarchy wasn't just a political plan, it was an invitation to a different kind of awareness. It asked us to consider that the systems we live within are not permanent laws of nature, but constructs that can be changed. The tension we feel when we hear his idea is the same tension we feel anytime we're asked to look past our first impression. Our instinct says, "This is too chaotic," or "This is the ultimate freedom," and wants to stop there. But a deeper look asks more interesting questions. What does community look like without a central authority? What does responsibility mean when actions are completely anonymous? Is total privacy the same as total freedom? Engaging with a challenging concept like this isn't about finding a simple answer. It's about practicing the skill of holding two conflicting ideas in your mind at once, without immediately choosing one to vanquish the other. It's about acknowledging that initial, instinctive voice, whether it's for or against, and then kindly asking it to step aside for a moment, so a quieter, more curious voice can have a turn. This process, this gentle unraveling of our own certainty, is where we often find not just answers, but better questions. This cracks open the entire premise, moving us from a simple idea into the complex reality of making it work. We start this journey with a beautifully simple vision. It is the initial, almost instinctual pull toward the idea of being truly free, of having our private conversations and financial dealings belong to us alone, beyond the reach of any central authority. It feels like discovering a secret key. We see the world in clear contrasts, where the old system of control is the villain and cryptographic tools are the obvious, elegant hero. Our reaction is often a knee-jerk one, a powerful and immediate sense of agreement, or a fierce, defensive rejection. There is no middle ground in this initial phase. It is all raw, unfiltered emotion, a binary response to a binary proposition. You might be someone who resists change at first, clinging to the familiar structure of the world as you know it, and that is a perfectly natural starting point. Then we enter the confusing middle, the phase where the simple idea meets the messy, complicated world. This is where Timothy May knew the real battle would be fought, not against governments directly, but against our own inertia, our ingrained habits, and the sheer complexity of building a new society within the shell of the old. The initial excitement fades as the practical questions arise. How do we handle disputes without courts? How do we ensure safety and prevent chaos without any central authority to call upon? Most of us feel uneasy during transitions, and this middle phase is the epitome of that unease. The clear black and white view dissolves into a million shades of grey. The knee-jerk reactions, whether for or against, begin to feel inadequate, even childish. We start noticing that the world cannot be remade with a single tool, no matter how powerful. The crypto-anarchist vision demands more than just adopting new software. It requires a fundamental rewiring of our social instincts, and that is profoundly difficult and unsettling work. This tough middle phase is where many movements fail, but May argued it was the necessary crucible. He understood that the challenges were not just technological, but deeply psychological and social. The old world pushes back, not just with laws, but with the weight of convention, with the comfort of the known, and with the powerful voices of those who benefit from the current system. We might find ourselves doubting the entire endeavor, wondering if the goal is even desirable, or if the path is too fraught with peril. You may catch yourself pausing before reacting lately, your initial certainty replaced by a more thoughtful hesitation. This is not a sign of failure, but of growth. It is the transition from a knee-jerk reaction to what May would contrast as a thoughtful response. The thoughtful response acknowledges the complexity, sits with the discomfort, and understands that a lasting change requires working through these problems, not pretending they do not exist. Gradually, if we persist, a new clarity emerges from this confusion. It is not a return to the simple certainty of the beginning, but something richer and more durable. We begin to see that the tools of crypto-anarchy are not about a sudden, violent overthrow, but about a gradual, relentless erosion of coercive control. It is the quiet creation of alternatives that are so compelling, so efficient, and so freeing that they make the old systems of control obsolete by comparison. The thoughtful response becomes our default. We understand that this is a long game, a generational shift in how we organize ourselves. We stop looking for a single moment of victory and start appreciating the small, cumulative wins. The encryption that protects a dissident's message, the irreversible transaction that empowers a creator, the private contract that needs no intermediary, these are the building blocks. We see that freedom is not a switch to be flipped, but a garden to be cultivated, and each tool we use, each choice for sovereignty we make, is like planting a seed. The journey does not end, but the path forward becomes clear, not as a straight line, but as a direction we can steadily move in, together. Through this discomfort, we begin to realize that the tightness in our chest, the constant, low-grade hum of anxiety, isn't just a personal failing or a random affliction. It's a signal. It's the friction of an old identity, a set of beliefs we've outgrown, rubbing against the emerging contours of who we are becoming. This feeling, as unsettling as it is the starting point of a profound journey, not a sign that we are lost. It's the first real step toward finding a version of ourselves that feels more authentic, more aligned, and remarkably more free. This process of shedding old skins is rarely comfortable because we've lived in them for so long. They've shaped how we see the world, and more importantly, how we believe the world sees us. We've collected labels and roles like souvenirs, some that fit perfectly at the time, and others we accepted simply because they were handed to us. The student, the caretaker, the reliable one, the high achiever, the people pleaser. We wear these identities, and for a while they serve a purpose. They help us navigate social circles, family expectations, and professional landscapes. But eventually, if we're paying attention, we start to feel a pinch. The sleeve is too short. The collar is too tight. The story we've been telling about ourselves no longer matches the person we feel ourselves to be inside. This is where the magic and the mess truly begins. It starts with small moments of dissonance. Perhaps it's a hobby we once loved that now feels like a chore, a social obligation we dread fulfilling, or a career path that suddenly seems to belong to someone else. We might try to ignore these feelings, to power through and assume it's just a phase of burnout or fatigue. But the feeling persists, a quiet but insistent whisper beneath the noise of daily life. It asks simple, terrifying questions. Is this really me? What if I change direction? What would happen if I stopped doing the thing I'm supposed to do and started listening to what actually feels right? Answering these questions requires a gentle curiosity, a willingness to sit with the uncertainty without immediately rushing to fill the silence with old patterns. It's about becoming a detective in your own life, observing your reactions without immediate judgment. Notice the activities that make time fly, and those that make every minute drag. Pay attention to the people who drain your energy, and those who leave you feeling replenished and inspired. This isn't about grand, dramatic gestures of change. It's about collecting data on your own soul. You'll likely find daily decisions coming easier when you begin to filter them through this new lens of what genuinely resonates with you, rather than what you think should resonate. This is also where we often bump into something psychologists call the Barnum effect. It's that tendency we all have to believe that vague, general personality descriptions are uniquely accurate for us. For so long, we might have accepted a horoscope's description, a quiz result, or a well-meaning relative's assessment as absolute truth about our character. We've built parts of our identity on these shaky foundations. I'm just a shy person, or I'm not good with technology, or I've always been hot-headed. We treat these statements as fixed, unchangeable laws of our being. But as we start to question the larger identity, we can start to question these smaller, self-limiting beliefs, too. We can test them. Is it that I'm inherently shy, or have I just not found my people or my context yet? The process of deconstruction allows us to see these statements for what they often are: habits of thought, not facts of nature. Many notice old frustrations don't bother them as much when they stop seeing them as an intrinsic part of their identity and start seeing them as malleable traits. As we practice this gentle observation and questioning, something remarkable begins to happen. The tightness starts to ease. The world, which once felt like a set of rigid instructions we had to follow, begins to feel more like a landscape of possibilities we can explore. Choices that once felt paralyzing become clearer. It's not that the path ahead is suddenly illuminated with a brilliant, blinding light. It's more that we've given ourselves permission to feel our way forward, step by step, trusting the feeling of solid ground beneath our feet, rather than staring at an outdated map. We start making decisions based on an internal compass that we've rediscovered and recalibrated, rather than based on external signposts telling us where we should go. This reorientation from external validation to internal trust is the core of the transformation. It's the difference between living a life that looks good on paper and living one that feels right in your bones. The former is a performance. The latter is an experience. It's messy, imperfect, and uniquely yours. It allows for off days and mistakes because those are no longer threats to a carefully constructed image. They are just part of the human data collection process. A failed attempt isn't a verdict on your capability. It's just information telling you what doesn't work for you, which is just as valuable as knowing what does. And as we integrate this new way of being, the people around us might notice. They might say, we seem lighter, more present, less anxious. They're sensing the absence of a struggle they probably never knew was there, the exhausting daily effort of trying to fit into a version of ourselves that was never tailor-made. That freed up energy now goes into living, creating, connecting, and simply being. We become more available for genuine connection because we're no longer using our interactions to prop up a fragile sense of self. We can show up as we are, and in doing so, we give others the implicit permission to do the same. Together, we discover that this journey wasn't about finding a brand new person hidden within. It was about peeling away the layers of expectation, obligation, and borrowed identity to reveal the person who was always there. It was a homecoming to the self. The discomfort at the beginning was simply the growing pains of expansion, the necessary ache of becoming more whole. The freedom that comes from this is profound and deeply physical. It brings to mind the key insight from thinker Timothy May who so perfectly captured the sensation of liberation that comes from this kind of personal truth. He described it not as a loud, triumphant fanfare, but as a quiet, profound relief, like finally taking off shoes that never quite fit. You never realized how much constant, subtle pressure you were enduring until the moment you release it, and you wonder how you ever walked so far in them to begin with. That first breath of ease, that feeling of the earth beneath your own bare feet, solid and real, is the feeling of coming home to yourself. It is the quiet, triumphant victory of a journey complete and the beautiful, open beginning of everything that comes next.